It was a loaded news day in Syracuse basketball and beyond yesterday. Weitsman in Syracuse getting basically a divorce in the NIL scheme. Jesse Edwards departs. We discussed that a little bit. We can take a further look at it today. There's a lot to break down, so we bring in a special guest to do so. It's your Locked On Syracuse Wednesday. Let's rock and roll.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome into your Locked On Syracuse Wednesday, and thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We bring in a special guest today. He's a CNY native, Syracuse.com writer. He's a professor. He's a TikTok star, as of the video I saw a day or two ago. An all-around good guy. Brent Axe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Owen, thank you so much for the great intro there. And of all the things you said there, TikTok star. You know, you gotta appeal to the kids, I've been told. So doing the TikToks now. There you go.
Oh,
we have another guest here, by the way. Whenever I do these podcasts, here's Blaze the dog. He's over here.
Blaze.
Yeah, he's over here on the side. He just said hello. There you go.
I have a new puppy in the other room. We have not revealed her yet on the show. So I wish I brought her in here. We could have done the double reveal today.
There you
That's
go.
Wonderful. The TikTok star bringing the dog on. This is already off to a great start today.
Dogs and TikTok. I mean, we're just hitting every viral, check mark you got to go with here.
Exactly. This should go nuts in the algorithm over on YouTube. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much for coming on today. You were one of a few people with the big news yesterday, chatting about Adam Weitsman and sort of the Syracuse in him in terms of the NIL scape. I've been calling it sort of a breakup or sort of a divorce, it feels like. Had been going for a little bit. Maybe it had seen some rumblings. It had seemed like it could be a little bit funky. And then we get the news yesterday formally that Weitsman will no longer be sort of partaking. You were one of, the spearheads on that news. Just, has this been something you've been hearing for a little bit? Was it something that was, you formally heard yesterday for the first time, or what has been sort of the backstory behind getting to this decision?
Well, there's definitely been some rumbles the past couple of months that things were starting to divide between Adam and Syracuse. And I think the first sign was the last two home games. Adam did not bring a celebrity guest. Now this was a great thing. He brought in some kids from the Make-A-Wish Foundation that got the royal celebrity treatment, right? Which was different, right?
Yeah.
But that was a sign something was off, right? It was a different kind of strategy, right? And you had heard some things. Certainly when the Boeheim news came out, I mean, Adam and Jim are really good friends. And that was a question that came up right off the bat, right? Would Adam continue his support of Syracuse, or was his support essentially for Boeheim, right? And Adam, certainly you could tell by some things that he said publicly, I think his first Instagram post afterwards, like it said, he took him a couple of days to really take it in and how things went down. And then, when Syracuse and Boeheim kind of kissed and made up and did that Friday press conference after the botched press conference after the Wake Forest ACC loss, like it seemed like, okay, everybody kind of kissed and made up there. But yeah, you had heard a lot of things. So then the Jesse Edwards news breaks yesterday, and I was going to write about it. And it really started as an inquiry about Jesse, and did Adam try to help Jesse, because Jesse has a complicated NIL situation with his visa, right? So I called Adam to see if he tried to help with that, if he had any insight on that, because this just seemed like, from everything we could gather, Jesse just wanted more NIL money than Syracuse could offer. even with the complicated situation, from what I understand, Owen, they've got a workaround for that visa situation, but he just feels like he can get more money elsewhere. So I just went right to the source and wanted to kind of figure out what that process was. And look, one thing led to the next. And, Adam was insistent on a number of things. He told me some things off the record that I can't share, but what he was willing to talk about was that, essentially he's done with Syracuse and he's done with NIL opportunities there and everything he's done, bringing in the celebrities. And the chancellor kept coming up in that conversation. He said, basically he had a fractured relationship with the chancellor. He never even spoke with the guy, right? And, that kept coming up as one of the main reasons why. I'm sure there's more to that story, but that was the one that he not only was willing to go on the record with, but, almost insisted on saying, look, if, you need to know this is the reason why I'm walking away. So that's how things kind of went down.
Yeah. And I mean, I think people are trying to figure out what the right level of reaction is to this, because yes, there's ways, with the collective, with, other people in the NIL space around Syracuse, obviously less public. There are ways that you are still going to be able to offer NIL, packages, money, not with the university, as where is sort of your reaction in terms of how big a deal this is? Because yes, there are other people that can provide and the collective can work to do so, but this is also an incredibly deep set of pockets with history at games and working with the university and working with, things such as Boeheim's Army in the summer, learning to get away from that. How big a deal is it not having Weitsman, in your back pocket?
It's a massive deal, Owen. It's a massive deal. Now, as I wrote in my column on Syracuse.com, they're not back to square one, but they are back at square two. Because here's the thing, NIL is still a complicated thing. Yes, Syracuse has this collective and they have this NIL store, and they have ways that athletes can now take advantage of their name, image, and likeness. But frankly, those are boring. Those are the standard way everybody else is doing it. What Adam brought to the table was something no one else is doing, right? And look, just because Josh Allen or Tom Brady or A Boogie with the hoodie sits courtside doesn't mean you're going to get players. That's not what that was about, though, right? What it did is it made Syracuse stand out. No one else has these people sitting courtside or even talking to the players in some cases post-game. And it was something that, as Adam put it, he did for the fans. What it did is it made Adam stand out as the NIL guy. Because remember, Syracuse is still in a sticky situation where you can't just pay athletes directly, right? NIL is where you have to go. But Adam made it abundantly clear, and Syracuse seemed okay with it the past few years, that any questions that were asked about NIL, there was a clear answer to it. There was a guy that would pay you, right? Like, just go see that man over there and he'll take care of you, right? So that's what made Syracuse stand out in what has become a crowded field in name, image, and likeness. And he put his money where his mouth is, in the sense of he paid out, I don't have the exact figures here. You can only go by what he tells you, but he paid over $1 million to members of the men's basketball team. Deja Fair on the women's basketball team had one of the more significant NIL deals in the ACC, a couple of football players, right? Like, he did that. And what you need is somebody that can supplement the deal or up the deal, right? A collective's great, but if you reach a certain status and you're a player and you realize your market value, like, that's the guy that Syracuse had visibly, publicly, that would give you the significant NIL deal, not a cut of a collective, like a big marketable, standout kind of deal. So Syracuse now has to figure out where they go from here. Like, is there another Adam Weitsman waiting in the wings? Maybe not the way he did things, but is the public face of NIL? Or do you just kind of say, like, hey, we got this collective, and, if you stand out enough, kid, then, we'll cut you a piece of that pie.
Yeah, I think, you nailed it in that it is a big deal because of how public he is. And maybe the publicity thing is where Syracuse wants to shy away because of, I don't know, the Cavendish situation in Miami, things of that nature. But at the same time, every time we speak with a recruit or we speak to players or recruiting analysts, they bring up the fact that Syracuse doesn't have the name value that it once had to upcoming recruits and players coming. And you don't have that guarantee where you don't even necessarily need a player to come to campus to know how big a deal basketball is. And you've lost that. And bringing this publicity, I think, did a good sort of working towards a bridge of, getting back in the public eye and seeing big name guys at games can definitely go a long way in terms of that regard. We'll continue this. We got to take one quick break. We'll hear from our friends at FanDuel, and then we will talk with more on this NIL space, the Weitsman Syracuse breakup, maybe a little bit more with regards to Jesse on the other side. But we've got grand slams, no hitters, double plays, all of them are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers, they can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your bet doesn't win. My bet of the day. To $1,000. Visit FanDuel.com/partner of the MLB. All right, we're bringing back Brent Axe, Owen Valentine, Brent Axe, talking a little bit with the NIL sphere here on your Locked On Syracuse Wednesday. Where does sort of, yesterday was a big day in terms of NIL, and you talked a little bit about how, even figuring out from Weitsman that this was happening started with the Jesse Edwards news and him sort of searching for a little bit more in the NIL sphere. How, is Syracuse just, it feels like, and, your opinion wise, does it just feel like they're still behind the 8 ball now and even more so in this sphere with regards to NIL, or am I an overreactor here in terms of when I look at Syracuse?
No, you're dead on. And the line I used in my column today, Owen, applies. Syracuse, if you've ever, I've never driven here, but I've talked to a lot of people that have, if you've ever driven to Vegas or in Arizona or Montana, they've got these highways where no one knows what the speed limit is, right? So you just drive as fast as you want. And that's the NIL space. So that's what confuses me about how Syracuse kind of operates out of fear here. I know they've crossed the line NCAA wise a couple of times, but the regulations and the guardrails on NIL just don't exist right now. The NCAA claims it's trying to reel all this back, and, give me a break. They completely screwed up on this. The toothpaste is out of the tube, and for them to try and circle back and try and regulate this is completely ridiculous. Even in those terms, Syracuse, here's what I said in the column. On that highway, okay, they've got the flashers on and they're driving 30 miles per hour. And everybody's driving by him, right? Adam Weitsman's the one guy that, if you wanted to use the word innovation or innovator, he was the one that was doing it, right? Kind of on not working with Syracuse. He just was associated with Syracuse because that's where he was, right? And Syracuse took his money in terms of, the courtside seats and the big suite that he not only built but renovated at the Dome. And they were happy to do that. And they were happy to accept all the accolades and the publicity that came with it. But when it got, Adam flew too close to the sun a couple of times, right? The Elijah Moore situation, you can't fly in a recruit on a private jet. Even in the world where there's no regulations, we kind of know, dude, don't do that, right? Don't poke the bear if you don't have to, right? So I get that. I get his methods were unconventional, and people certainly that kind of live in an old school mentality at Syracuse were probably not happy with, right? But where are you at now? You are in a situation where you're just another school looking for money. What Adam did, like it or not, agree or disagree, it stood out. And it is so hard to stand out in this space, in the ever-evolving world where things change daily in college sports. So my question is, how does Syracuse do that now, right? How do you do that now? Because that's at the very least what Adam did for you. and is no longer going to do. So they kind of had all their eggs in one basket, whether they wanted to or not, Owen, that, he was their John Ruiz, the guy at Miami. But see, the problem is with all the schools you're competing with now, most of these major programs, they have 10 Adam Weitsmans. Syracuse had 1. So how do you replace that now? I'm as curious as anybody how they do it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at clothing stores, and I don't mean to knock on that. It's a great idea for the players to be able to sell merch, things of that nature. But, how many fans are buying a shirt for every single player on a basketball team or a football team? So that money, although it's there and it's a portion of profits, is not tremendous by any means. And when you're going with a collective that, is going behind the scenes, we don't know exact details of that. How much money is there to be able to get to these players for different, appearances and events and things of that? We're not sure. And that's sort of the limbo that it leaves us in. And I wanted to hit a little bit more on Jesse Edwards because, there's some conversations and some thoughts that I've been having in terms of money. And you look at Jesse right now, and it's, some rumblings from other schools maybe in the ear as to we can get you more elsewhere. And it seems like they might have found that loophole, right? For a 4-year guy coming back, if we can't find the money for Jesse, where is the 5-star recruit money coming in? Where is the pitch to a big time transfer, a Hunter Dickinson, for example, things of that nature? Where's that money coming from if you can't maintain guys on the campus itself?
The answer is Adam Weitsman, right? That would have been the direction you could have gone in. So now you brought up Hunter Dickinson or any big time player that you would have to replace Jesse Edwards with. And see, this can happen. The portal closes in a month, right? There's this initial wave of things that happen a day or two after, your season ends, but it's an extended thing. And players have taken the time to step back and really kind of assess their value, Jesse being one of them, right? So what have these other schools figured out that Syracuse could not? I mean, it's a simple answer. They figured out a way around the visa and how much money Jesse can pay. And Jesse, remember, he's making up for lost time because he wasn't able to get NIL money up until this point. And Owen, I don't want to speak for Jesse, but it can't be about playing time. It can't be about, obviously, if you look at the numbers, the guy, started every game, played almost every minute. He was the guy here. Yeah. So it's external things. And with NIL coming up as much as it is, Syracuse could not offer him what other schools could. And this is a guy who's going to play professional basketball, right? This is not a situation where I got to cash in now or it's not going to come. He's going to play professional basketball, be that in Europe, be that in, an NBA situation, whatever it's going to be. So the answer there was, and I don't want to keep coming back to Adam. Adam's the example in this situation. But obviously, without Adam and his, standout resources, what Syracuse had available was not good enough for a Jesse Edwards. Even look at Joe Girard. Wherever he goes, he's going to make more money than he was making here. I've heard some numbers being thrown around about what Joe's going to make wherever he goes. And if I was sitting right across from him right now, I would say, get the hell out of here and go take that money. Why wouldn't you? Right? So Syracuse is clearly losing this game. There's no other way to put it. And by the way, they were fighting in this game, Owen, with Weitsman. Yeah. Now he's out. So again, let's just look at it this way. If you were somebody that didn't like Weitsman, didn't like his methods, didn't like the attention he brought, thought he was in it for himself to up his Instagram followers, whatever your criticism would be, here's my response to that. What's your plan? Okay, great. You don't like Adam. Great. He's out. What's your plan now? What is your plan to match that? Because what we're seeing with these players now, Jesse being the latest example, is you're not winning this game. You are out of this game, and you've got to figure out a way to get back in it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you go to Weitsman too, a guy who's digging into his pockets and putting millions of dollars on the table, somebody asks for a little bit of social publicity as a response for it. Seems like the least that could, happen in return. It doesn't seem like that big a deal to me that he wants some publicity to go along with the fact that there's money continually being, put on the table for Syracuse Athletics to be able to,
and Owen,
benefit from on their own.
For what it's worth, he paid every dollar of the suite, the courtside seats, security. Syracuse would essentially provide the security, but he would get billed for it. Like everything you think, private planes, every dollar of that was spent by Weitsman. So if he benefits a little from that, I mean, this is America. Like, good for you.
Yeah.
Like you've got 20 million Instagram followers and you're an influencer and you're doing, as long as you're doing everything on the up and up, good for you. Right. And every conversation I've had with the guy, and you can only go by what somebody tells you, right? As a journalist, as somebody who does this, you're always skeptical of certain things, but he has been insistent with me, Owen, that he does it to help the athletes. Certainly his relationship with Boeheim was a motivating factor to help out his friend in the school that he worked at up until recently, of course, and to give the fans a little extra something. Like, the quote that I had in my column today about, coming to Syracuse games, not just the Duke games, like this can be expensive for people. So if it can make it feel worth their while to come to a game and look down there and there's Josh Allen or there's Cole Hauser or there's, Odell Beckham Jr. or Allen Iverson, fill in the blank, Giannis, all these people that have come. It's something he could give back because this is not his words. These are my words now. I mean, frankly, you've got the money and you can't take it with you. And if he feels like this is his way to give back to the community, and again, if he benefits from it a little bit, well, good for him. It's a two-way road. And if it helps Syracuse in a way, now here's the argument here. How much did this tangibly help Syracuse, right? Like what can you directly point to that Adam Weitsman did that landed this recruit or made Syracuse better? Or, these are all fair questions to bring up, but I do know it's better than the old fashioned way that they were doing it. I'd rather play that game or something similar to it than the game Syracuse seems to want to play, which is the safe way. You can't do it the safe way anymore. You've got to be bold. And what Adam was doing was bold.
I don't know if you have the answer to this, but I'll ask. And if you can't answer, that's fine as well. Have you heard anything with regards to Elijah Moore and their sort of conversations that preemptively happened?
I haven't heard anything specifically. I did ask Adam about that in the course of reporting out that story. And, right now he doesn't have a signed contract with Elijah Moore. Obviously he recruited him. He brought him in. He was going to be kind of the next step in that. Elijah Moore is committed. And remember, his father did a story, talked to Mike Waters on Syracuse.com. We did a story about it and kind of disputed the NIL stuff is the reason why Elijah committed to Syracuse. I don't have the exact quote, but I remember it was something like, Elijah didn't commit to Syracuse because of rappers and private planes and things of that nature, right? So at this point, they don't have a signed agreement. And that's a good point to bring up, Owen, because what Adam told me is he will honor any contracts that are there now. For example, Deja Fair is coming back next year. He's going to honor that contract that he has with her. That's the only one he brought up specifically. So anything in the future that wasn't signed, if you will, I don't know if that's going to be honored, when Elijah Moore arrives here. I know there was a couple of football things that were pending as well. I'm not sure what the status of those are, but anything that is in place now will be honored. And Deja's the most notable one there. I might be forgetting one or two, but he will stick to those commitments.
All right, couple more little things to hit on before we wrap up our Wednesday episode here. I would not be able to let you go without mentioning it a little bit. We have a free Brent Axe hashtag that shows up in the YouTube comments pretty much every video. So just, sort of your response to that would be greatly appreciated, I think, for the group of people that participated in that.
Wow. Think of all these things we're talking about, Owen. I'm on the TikTok. I'm a hashtag now. My daughter is going to think like I'm the coolest guy on earth now. This is fantastic. My response is thank you. I can't tell you how overwhelmed I've been from people that have been reaching out via on Twitter, the internet, in the produce section at Wegmans, whatever the case may be. People have been unbelievably kind about my little situation And I can't tell you how much I get emotional thinking about it, because you just, Owen, you show up, you do the work every day. You hope you did a good show. You hope you made somebody's day better, and you get up and you do it the next day. Right. And to hear how much it really affected people, and, what we do is unique in different formats, right? Being a columnist, being a podcaster, being a radio host, like they all connect with people differently. And radio is just this unique forum that people feel like they're part of your life. You're with them 2 hours a day, every day in the afternoon, and they come to rely on it, and they come to just, it's comfort food for them. So when that gets taken away, it makes you kind of realize what that connection was. And to have people reach out and tell me that, it means the world to me. It means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for that, and the support and the messages. And I don't have anything to report at the moment. Eyes emoji. I'll put it that way. What is it they say in oh boy, like we're in beta testing right now. I'll put it to you that way. Okay. I'm kind of figuring out what the next step's going to be, but rest assured, you're going to hear from me again in the audio space of sorts. You're certainly going to hear more from me in the digital space, right? There's going to be more coming in that way. We were joking around about TikTok, but that's kind of the road to go down, more TikToks and Instagram videos, Twitter, whatever it is, right? I'll figure it out. We'll figure out what the format's going to be, and we'll go from there. But rest assured, guys, you're going to hear more from me. More details to come on that. We're still kind of figuring out what the best approach is going to be, but more to come. And I'm still writing, of course, on Syracuse.com and doing that, and tweeting away and wherever you got to do things these days. So certainly more to come. But thank you. For the free Brent Axe hashtag and all the messages. I get a kick out of that. That's great. But it's truly appreciated.
Awesome. We are excited to and ambitious and anxious to see, what comes next, because we'll love to see more from you. In the meantime, as you said, Syracuse.com, over on Twitter. Stay in touch with whatever is coming out news wise. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate seeing you, and it's been a long time coming getting you on here with me. I guess I don't know if you came on with Tyler and Tim in the past. I forget, but
I did. I think I've
right.
checked all the hosts of this show. So great to be on with you. And anytime you want to chat, let me know. And good to see you. And again, thanks to everybody listening for all the support. And onward we go. There's never an off season, as you know, when it comes to this stuff. So keep doing what you do and keep up the good work. And appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with your Locked On Syracuse Thursday. Talk a little Syracuse basketball recruiting, transfer portal. There's never a dull day in the portal and recruiting at this point in time. We'll break it all down. I'm Owen Valentine. That is Brent Axe on the other side. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Be kind. Make somebody smile today, and we'll catch you tomorrow.